Hi everyone, thanks for being here tonight. My name is Tessa Solomon-Lane, and I'll be talking about why society needs the science it doesn't think it needs. So science is knowledge, and very specifically, science is organized knowledge. Science is our only method of taking the unknown and making it known by asking and answering questions about how and why things are the way that they are. And I would argue that without the intellectual and physical products of science, our society would be largely unrecognizable. Now, to demonstrate that point, I'd like to walk you through about the first 30 minutes of my day. Like many of you, I sleep in a bed. An alarm on my phone wakes me up, and I go to my laptop and check the news and my email, have a bowl of cereal, brush my teeth, put on my helmet and hop on a bike, not quite as nice as this one, and ride to work. Now, why show you all these really commonplace items? Well, as it turns out, there is active scientific research on each of these things. For example, how is your mattress contributing to your lower back pain? Is the food that you're eating giving you the nutrients you need, and is it satiating? And how effective would that helmet be in the event of a crash? So in answering this question, why does society need science? Well, the society we know is largely a product of the science that we do. But answering the question that literally, making a laundry list of scientific achievements, ignores a really important context in which we know this question is being asked. Namely, a context in which science education and scientific research funding are being threatened. And I think it's very telling that I know of not one anti-science politician who's also volunteering to give up their smartphone, or their satellite interviews, or their clinically tested medications. So perhaps the question we need to be asking is, why does society need the science that it doesn't think that it needs? And to answer this question, I'd like to introduce you to the blue-banded goby and tell you a bit about my own research. Now, I think it's safe to assume that all of you here tonight are supporters of science, but you probably don't spend a lot of time thinking about this fish. So if I can convince you of its value to science and society, I think it makes a good case study. This is a highly social fish, and like other highly social species we know, they live in social groups. And as members of a social species ourselves, I think we can agree on two things about living in social groups. First, living in social groups is hard, and there's evidence of conflict all around us. Conflict between individuals, escalating all the way to war over things like oil, money, and land. The second thing I think we can agree on is that some do it better than others. And this is where the blue-banded goby comes in. The blue-banded goby forms social groups of a dominant male and multiple subordinate females. And in an experiment, we can focus on one particular individual, and we can ask, in this context, are you successful? And because looking at success in just one context doesn't tell us a lot about success over a lifetime, because context changes, we can ask the same individual in a new social context, are you successful here? And because this is a sex-changing fish, where females can turn into males and males can turn back into females, you can ask the same female, are you successful as a dominant male? Now, if this was your life, it might be like serving as an intern one day, a board member the next, and a CEO the next. And so we can do this over and over and over again, and we can start to understand different social strategies. So you might have a set of individuals that no matter what context they find themselves in, they excel, where in contrast you have individuals that succeed in a very narrow range of contexts. Now, I want to be clear that these strategies aren't inherently better or worse than one another. But for humans, we do know that when there's a mismatch between the demands of the social context and the social skills of the individual, there's higher incidence of mental illness and lower success reported at school and at work. And so once we've identified these different social strategies, we can now ask, what makes these individuals different? What's different in their brains? Did they experience something different in their lives? Now, I want to be clear, we're not using the blue-banded goby to stand in for a human. Instead, we're recognizing that both of these species, along with many others, evolved on the same planet Earth to solve many of the same challenges, such as challenges related to living in a social group. And I would argue it's by studying these diverse species that we can begin to understand important yet very complex traits, such as resilience. And I would argue that members of society would readily agree that understanding why certain individuals excel given every single obstacle, whereas others stumble at the very first roadblock, is of the utmost importance to our society. But I want to be clear that the blue-banded goby is just one example of perhaps millions of science that contributes to society, but society may not recognize as important. But I actually urge you not to take my word for it. Ask your own questions. Gather your own evidence. Think critically. And be the scientist that society doesn't think it needs, but really does. Thank you.